Hey guys, so today I am talking about all of the books that I read in the month of April. I know that we are already like halfway through May, but I actually already filmed this twice and I just wasn't happy with how any of them turned out. And then I got really busy with graduation things because I finally graduated from grad school, and so I was busy with all of that. And before I knew it, it was the middle of May and I still hadn't done my April wrap up. So here we are. I have 5 books total to talk about. I only read 4 in April, but I am going to throw one that I read in May in the mix because I actually have a video idea that I'm kind of in the middle of right now and it won't require a May wrap up. So I'm gonna throw in one of the extras that I had in the mix, but I will stop rambling on and we can go ahead and get started. So the first book that I read in April was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this is a historical fiction that follows 2 different artists, singer Daisy Jones and the band The Six, and they are coming together to create an album. It just follows their journey with that. The entire book is told in an interview format, which I thought was really cool. So it has like the band member's name and then their dialogue there. So that was really cool. It made it seem very real. I absolutely loved this. I have such an interest in bands and just the behind the scenes of all of that. And so following, even if it was fictional, following this band was a super cool experience for me. I was so just obsessed with this band. I wanted to listen to the Aurora album that they made so badly. Even though I knew they weren't real, I would still Google them and just to check, you know. One thing that Taylor Jenkins Reid did do that was really neat is she put in lyrics to every song on that album because they talk a lot about the songs that they're writing. And so we get all of the lyrics to each one of the songs, which was just such a nice touch. I really liked that she included that in this book. I love how Taylor Jenkins Reid does such a great job at making these characters so real. I mean, it was just incredible. I absolutely loved this. I've heard nothing but great things. So I had really high expectations for this and it did not disappoint at all. So that was really a really good way to start off the month. I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid last year and I absolutely loved it. But one thing I thought was so cool is one of the husbands that Evelyn has, his name is McReva, and he is a singer, and he was briefly mentioned in this book, which I just thought was so cool that she included someone in her previous little world of celebrities, and they're just all living together, all creating these great movies and albums that I'll never get to see or listen to. But yeah, I thought that was definitely a nice touch. I was like, oh, I've seen that name somewhere, and I had to look it up to make sure that that's where I'd seen it. So yeah, I definitely love this. I would highly recommend it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and so it is one that I'm definitely looking forward to picking up again. And I know that it's going to be a TV show. It was announced, I believe, on Amazon, and so I'm so excited to watch that and see these characters come to life and hear the songs that I only was able to read the words to. And so it was just such a good time. If you have any interest in like bands or behind the scenes of anything like that, definitely check this out because it is such a good time. The next book that I picked up in April was A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. I hope I'm saying that right. But this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It follows a girl named Harper, and she lives in Washington, D.C. And one day she sees a girl trying to get kidnapped, and she tries to interfere and finds herself getting kidnapped. And she is taken to this magical kingdom called Emberfall, and there she meets Prince Ren, aka our Beast, and it is just a typical Beauty and the Beast story that we know and love. He needs her to fall in love with him so he can break a curse. I had heard really good things about this. I was excited to read it. I had actually never read a Beauty and the Beast retelling before. I know there's so many, but this is the first one that I had read. One thing that I really liked about it was the disability rep. So Harper has cerebral palsy, and she is just this strong, stubborn character, and she's such a good female lead, and I really liked that her disability was brought in, but it in no way defined her. I thought that the author did a very good job with that, in my opinion. I don't have cerebral palsy, so I can't speak from that point of view, but as an outsider reading about it, I really liked that she had this disability and it did not stop her at all, and so that was something I really enjoyed. I also really liked the character development in this. I thought that time was taken to really understand the characters, in my opinion. I don't know, there's three main characters. There's Gray, Wren, and Harper, and I think that just time was spent really getting to know them, and so I really liked that. One thing that was lacking for me a little bit in this story was the romance. I wish that had been a little more prominent throughout, since, you know, the whole point of the curse is to get Harper to fall in love with him. I really liked the scenes where we were able to see the characters connecting and talking and everything, and there was just not enough of that, in my opinion. It was a lot more about trying to save the kingdom and trying to do things like that. I don't want to get into it because of spoilers, but I just was hoping for more romance than I got with this. Another thing that was a little disappointing is it is a very slow book, and I just wasn't expecting that. I really do love Beauty and the Beast, so I was expecting the typical story that I love, and I mean, it's a thick book, and I just feel like a lot of the parts dragged on, and like I said, there wasn't tons of romance or anything like that, and so a lot of the parts that dragged on were just not super interesting to me. I did give this 3 out of 5 stars. It was good and I did like it, and I read it pretty fast for me for as big of a book as it was, but like I said, there was just some stuff that was missing in it, and I know that there is a sequel, and so I am interested in picking that up to see if the pace quickens a little or if there's more romance, because now we know how this whole storyline ended, and yeah, I'd be interested to see what the second one goes into. Like I mentioned, the last book left me just wanting a nice romance read, and so I picked up The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This follows two characters, Lucy and Josh, and they both worked at companies that were merged together, and the two companies just are not big fans of each other. Lucy and Josh's bosses don't like each other, and Lucy and Josh don't like each other either. Then a promotion opens up that Lucy and Josh are both applying for, and so that creates even more tension between the two, and yeah, I can't go too much into it because of spoilers, but it is a hate to love romance, and I had seen so many good things about it here on BookTube and on Goodreads, and so I was so excited to pick this one up. I mentioned I got this for my birthday in April, and so I picked it up right away. I was so excited to get to it, and I absolutely loved it. It was so cute, so good. It gave me that romance that I had been wanting in the last book. It was just, it was so good. I really loved the characters. I loved Lucy. She was just this driven woman, and I thought she felt very real, and I loved Josh. Oh my gosh, Josh was such a great male lead character. He was sarcastic, he was snarky, he was stubborn. Oh my gosh, he was so good. So I would highly recommend this. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars only because it was really predictable, which is fine. Like I said, it's a really fun, easy read, and so I wasn't expecting it to be a bunch of plot twists and turns or anything like that, but there were some parts in the book that I think were played up to be big surprises if that makes sense. And they were just very, very predictable surprises. That's the only reason that this was not a 5-star book for me. It was just so good. If you were looking for a good, fun, hate to love, this is one that I would highly recommend. Next up, I read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have not stopped thinking about Daisy Jones and the Six since I read it, but especially when it was the first book I read of the month, I had such a craving to read this book. Like I said, I read it last year, so it was a reread for me, and I have talked about it quite a bit on my channel, so I'll go into a very brief synopsis. This follows actress Evelyn Hugo, and she is finally opening up about her life, and she seeks out this up-and-coming journalist named Monique to write the story of her life. And basically we are just told all about Evelyn's rise to fame and her 7 husbands that she's had, and it is just such a great story. Oh my goodness, I love it so much. So when I originally read this, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I was expecting Evelyn to be a likable character, and she is just not really. She is a very frustrating character at times. She just gets herself in some situations where she makes decisions where you want to jump in the book and just change her mind, get her not to make some of these decisions. A lot of times in the book I would be like, well, yeah, no wonder it didn't work out, because it was just a silly decision. It's a book that I have thought about so much since I've read it, and so I needed to read it again, especially after Daisy Jones and the Six, because I thought that I would have a greater appreciation for it, and I did. It was definitely a 5-star read this time around. I think that since I went into it knowing that Evelyn was a little bit of a frustrating character, that I appreciated it more and I understood her decisions more. And a lot of times in the book she even says that she knows she's not a good person and all of these things. And so I don't know why the first time around that was such a surprise to me, because if a character's telling you, oh, I don't always make the best decisions and I understand that I'm not really a good person, one wouldn't think that one would go into it being like, no, you're a great person. Not that she's some awful person by any means, but it was just, I think, a surprise for me the first time around. I wanted her to be a lot more likable, but yeah, I definitely liked it. This is such an emotional story. Read this if you want to feel just all of the emotions that you can have. I mean, I laugh, I cry, it's such a wonderful, heartbreaking, amazing story. So it is one that I highly recommend. I recommend it to so many people. So if you have been putting off reading this, I would recommend jumping online, picking it up. It's so good. Oh, and one little thing that I forgot to mention about this book that I thought was so cool. So one of my favorite books, movies, all of that is Little Women, and I didn't read it or watch it until December, and so I read this book back, I think, in October, and so Little Women just was not really on my radar yet, or it didn't have as big of an impact as it did on me, because I didn't know I was gonna love it as much as I did. And so I was reading this the second time around, and one of the movies that Evelyn stars in that is such a big deal in this book is Little Women, and she plays Jo, who is my just fictional queen. And so I just loved that that was a part in this book. I feel like it made it even more just amazing. I love it, but I had to throw that in there that Little Women is in this book, and how cool is that Evelyn plays Jo? The coolest. So the last book I have to talk about today is the one that I technically finished in May, but that was Hilt by Emma Scott. This follows 2 young adults, Casey and Jonah. Casey is in a band, and one night she performs a concert and a party gets a little out of control and she blacks out and needs to be taken home. And so Jonah is her limo driver and he takes her back, and it's just a mess. He can't get her into the house, and so he decides to take her somewhere safe, and that is his apartment. And so she stays the night at his apartment, and from there they develop a friendship turned more. Things get a little complicated when Casey finds out that Jonah has a heart condition and that he had a transplant but his body is rejecting it, and so he has limited time, and it just follows their relationship and the struggles that they have. I picked this up because I had heard multiple people talk about how if you are a fan of The Fault in Our Stars that you have to read this, and I am a Tivios junkie. I love The Fault in Our Stars so much. When I heard that this was like a new adult Tivios, I was about it, and I ordered it online, and I was really excited to get to it. I will say that it didn't live up to the hype of comparing it to one of my all-time favorite books. This is told in dual perspectives, which is fine, but I think that Jonah's character was developed so much better than Casey's. So Jonah, like I said, has a heart condition, and so we see flashbacks to when he was getting the transplant and, you know, finding out that it's failing, and his relationship with his brother and his family and his hobbies and why he is on such a tight schedule. And we just learned so much about him, and he is a really great character. I really enjoyed reading about him. However, I just think Casey was just such a messy character. I mean, in the beginning, she is played out to be this just girl who's really struggling. She doesn't have the best relationship with her family, and she uses drugs and alcohol to cope with that, and that's kind of the introduction we get to her, is that alone. And so I was really hoping that that would be expanded on more, and how she's dealing with it and her problems, not just Jonah's. It's honestly really never brought up again until she's randomly just like, oh, and I haven't felt the need to want to drink or smoke or do any of this. And it's just like, it just seems weird that it was even brought up, that that was an issue for her, if it seems like all she needed to do was meet this guy. She was just, all of her problems went away, and I just didn't like that. I wish that it would have been, I wish we would have seen more into her problems and what she struggled with, rather than it just being brushed under the rug, because I think that that would have been interesting to see, especially since Jonah is going through all of this, and that's not easy on her by any means. That if her previous coping mechanisms have been the drugs and the alcohol, you would think that she would be struggling with that a little bit, instead of just not having any urge to do any of that. And so that was one gripe I had about this book. Another was the writing style wasn't my favorite. I don't know. The characters talk to themselves a lot, which is really weird. Like, we would be, for example, like if we were in Casey's portion where she's talking and she's thinking about something, she would be thinking all of this stuff, and then out loud she would be like, oh, I don't need to be thinking about that. And it's, most people, I feel like that's not a common thing to do, is to like answer your thoughts or respond to them all the time, like especially when you're like alone. It was a very strange choice because it was done pretty frequently. Another thing that I really didn't like about this book was the amount of steamy scenes. I was fine with like a couple, like it seemed fine for a few, but at a point it became all the relationship was, and I just didn't like that. Not because I was like offended by it or anything, but it was just, it's played out that Jonah and Casey have this intense, amazing relationship only after a couple months of knowing each other, and I find that very hard to believe when we only get a few scenes of them actually talking and connecting. After that, a lot of it is just them going at it, and it's like, I don't know, it just, and part of me, I think, was really just comparing it to The Fault in Our Stars. And I mean, in The Fault in Our Stars, I feel like the relationship is just so amazing. We get so many scenes of them connecting and everything, and the characters are what's so special about that book to me, not the fact that there is someone with a disease that's dying. I feel like comparing it to The Fault in Our Stars is such a just not a good comparison, because for people like me, where I mean, if you liked The Fault in Our Stars because of the idea that someone has a disease and limited time and everything, like, pick this up. But for someone like me, where it was a lot about the characters and all of that, it just was not something that I liked too much. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars because it wasn't terrible, but I don't know, the second half really like let me down because the first part is a lot more of them more as friends and just kind of talking and connecting and opening up, and then, you know, it all goes downhill from there, in my opinion. Yeah, it was a bummer. I know there's a second one. I have absolutely no interest in picking it up. This was honestly a 2-star the entire time, but the end did make me cry, so since it got some emotion out of me, I bumped it up a star. But yeah, it was definitely a letdown. Alright guys, so those were all of the books that I read in April. Let me know if you have read any of those or what you guys read in April. I'd be really interested to know. Also, I have all of my links down in the description, so if you would like to be friends and talk all things books with me, add me and we can do that. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Like I said, I've been working on a video that I'm so excited about, so if you would like to see more bookish content from me, definitely subscribe, and I will see you guys in my